Yeah.
I love how you say it in your program, you're unblackmailable.
Yeah.
Whoa. Right? Because if all of your demons are out, nobody can blackmail you.
Yeah. If you're hiding nothing, then what are they going to say?
How liberating is that?
Exactly.
Somebody can't say, well, I've got dirt on you. Okay,
I've already told everybody.
Great.
We're good.
there's no dirt. You
Yeah.
can't blackmail me. So let me start off with a personal story. So a few weeks ago, Curtis was teaching a running seminar. And so being a little older and a little larger in frame than some of the other runners, I was falling back as we were running around the lake with another gentleman. And he says to me, so how do you know Curtis? And I was like, well, I've read a couple of his blogs, watched some of his videos. And then I said to Doug, so how do you know Curtis? And he says, oh, I was in his pornography recovery program. And I had to stop and go, why didn't I say that? Mm. And then I thought, well, that's the difference. I was just starting your program versus somebody who had just been through it. And it was astonishing to me that just the way he said it, that whole word, as we'll talk about here in a minute, had no power over me as I've come through this. Because as a child growing up, I think I was 10 when I found my father's pornography. And back in the day, in mid-1970s, I'm sure it was just a calendar of some kind. I found it in his church drawer in his office. I was snooping and shouldn't have. And what's crazy about that, Curtis, is a year later, our house burnt down. So I've always thought, well, what if I wouldn't have found it when I was 10? Because I would have not found it after I was 10 because that all got burnt down and he didn't have it anymore, I guess. But that's when I found it. And so I was able to go back to that moment and realize what an effect all that had on me. And I didn't understand the shame I was living with until earlier this year. I was helping coach a woman to voice her new book for Audible, and I listened to 53 hours of her recording her book of the sexual abuse and the domestic violence. And it triggered me to no end. And then you and I had a conversation that one Saturday when I was sitting in my car, and you were like, hey, I have a program starting Monday or that next Wednesday. And I have to say that the last 2 months have literally changed my life. So first and foremost, that was kind of a big intro to all of this, but that's my personal story. And I would have been ashamed to admit that. But now I don't live with shame. I don't live with that weight. So first and foremost, let me publicly say thank you. You changed my life. You saved my soul. I'm grateful for that. So thank you.
You're welcome, Coz. You're welcome. You got us crying already, man.
Well,
Yeah.
that's what this is all about.
That's-
So let's start with your story of where Counterfeit Emotions came from, because you have a personal story too. This is not just a bunch of textbooks you read. You had to go through your own journey to discover this is true.
Yeah.
Tell us about that.
I did. It was an incredibly tough journey to go through. About 8 years ago now, I went through my hardest trial of life, which was a divorce, and it was crushing. It was absolutely soul crushing, and I'll never forget when. So at the time, I was living in my brother's basement. I was without my kids. Like, it hurt. It hurt so badly. And when I felt that level of pain, the level of pain where I was wishing a mountain would fall upon me, I also felt God's love in extreme measures. And just as big as the pain was, I felt love. And I felt joy, and my brain couldn't make sense of it, because my whole life I had this perception. My whole life I thought, you either get pain or you get joy. You either get pain or you get love. You don't get both. And there's this big steel wall that says they're completely exclusive. And when I felt both at the same time, I said, wait a minute. Have I been calling this the wrong thing? And I realized I had. I realized that on one side of the wall wasn't pain. On that side of the wall was misery. But I get to choose where I put my pain. I can either bury it deep under the sludge and the tar of misery. And misery is based in two things. It's blame and shame. Or I can put it on the other side of the wall. And I get to choose. I get to make the choice of shame and blame, which is misery, or joy and love. And you think, wait a minute, pain and joy, pain and love together? Yes. The truth is yes. You can feel them together. And when I realized that, I honored the pain. Instead of trying to numb and distract and bury that pain, I was able to honor it. And it became a sacred sorrow. And that's kind of the genesis or the origin of Counterfeit Emotions, is when I realized that I had been calling misery pain and pain misery. And I thought, wait a minute, this emotion is counterfeiting pain so well. I don't even understand it. I don't even see it. I don't even know that I'm taking this natural pain of life that has to happen. Pain is inevitable, but misery is optional. And I was dipping into the misery bucket and just pouring it over my head.
Woe is me.
Yes. The battle cry of the victim is, this isn't fair. And life wasn't. But that's the thing. It was never meant to be fair. It was meant to be customized for each individual person.
Yeah, somehow God has a way of customizing our curriculum, doesn't he?
He does.
For each one of us.
He does.
And then when I started going through your program, I'm like, Curtis, I want to thank you. I know you've put a lot of men through this, but you wrote this for me because it was so personal. And I know that as we get into this, shame is personal and it's very subjective, but you've developed something here that can change lives and change marriages and heal relationships. And it's been amazing to watch because some of the men in my group are married and what it's done to transform their lives, and some of us that were single, how it's just changed our perspective of the way we see the world, the way we see women now. And we'll take a deeper dive into these counterfeit emotions. But how did you discover where these counterfeits and the authentic ones actually come from? What was your process then, as you said, okay, pain is inevitable, but misery is a choice? Okay, that's one. We'll talk about that in a minute. But where did all the others come from? What was your evolution? What was the discovery? What was the journey to find all these?
Yeah, the very first dyad was pain and misery. Or when I say dyad, I mean pairing of emotions.
Sure.
The second was actually, I learned through a very funny experience that nice is the counterfeit of kind. And the experience that happened, I got a call from a friend, and he was a kind friend, not a nice friend. He said, "Hey, Curtis, do people tell you you're nice?" And, I'm on the call and I'm like, yeah. And
With pride. I'm a nice guy.
I wore it as a badge of honor. Sure. That was like part of my identity.
That's your value system.
Yep, Mr. Nice guy. Yeah. I'm opening the door for you. I'm, walking the lady across the street. I'm like, all of the things that you think of as the nice guy. That's what I prided myself on. And so I affirmed, I'm like, yeah, you bet I'm the nice guy. And he goes, Curtis, can I tell you something? Nice guy is the most despicable person on the planet. and it was just like, oh, Ollie, you so set me up. And it was just like this dagger. I'm like, what are you talking about? Despicable. You're calling me despicable? And he goes, think about it. The nice guy is not honest. And I'm like, oof, okay. Now I know he's not talking about me. And then he goes, the nice guy is manipulative. And I'm like, okay, for sure this has got to be somebody else. But then as I dug into it, as I was like, wait a minute, is there truth to this? I realized he was right. That a lot of my nice behavior, well, actually all of my nice behavior was to simply avoid conflict. It wasn't a virtue. That's kindness. Nice is a defense mechanism to avoid conflict, and that's it. And it does it with a smile. It's like this big smile, like, hey, I'm going to be so nice to you, so you have to be nice back. But it's not kind. And one of the big differences is that kind will always lean in. Nice leans out. Does it with a big smile, but it leans out. And it says, you stay over there. You be on your side. I'm going to smile at you, but you make sure you don't get too close, because that means there might be a time we have conflict, and I'm going to not rock the boat.
So no more Mr. Nice Guy.
No more Mr. Nice Guy.
Yeah, that's a great program too. And I'd already listened to that and read that book. So when you introduced nice versus kind, it totally made sense. But I wore the mask of nice.
Oh yeah.
But let's stay here for a minute then. So nice doesn't have boundaries though.
That's the big differentiator, is you're kind when there's boundaries. And nice can never be safe. Because
how so?
Because if I have to be nice to you, I mean, if I'm going to placate or subjugate my opinion to you, well, the next person, I turn into this chameleon, and now I'm placating to them, and then the next person, and it doesn't have a strong sense of self. It doesn't have a boundary that says, this is me, this is where I start, and this is you, this is where I end. And understanding that difference, kind is always nice, because kind starts here. Kind starts with self, and it starts with boundaries. And if you know I'm a boundaried person, you don't have to guess what's going to happen when we have conversations. You don't have to say, oh, is he going to explode if it gets mad or what? If I'm a boundaried person, you have a frame of reference of Curtis is this, right? And so it's safe. But because I have boundaries, I never have to question, am I going to be taken advantage of? Am I going to be, this person that is always the victim? No, I'm safe because I hold the safety inside. I don't have to be a different person with every single friend or family member I meet. I just get to be me.
That's powerful. That is very powerful. Let's start with the foundation of what was the big aha for me. Because as I've tried to overcome certain addictions in my life, my weight has been all over the place since I was a little kid, because I was an emotional eater, right? Pornography had a place to self-medicate at certain seasons of my life, something I didn't battle with every day, but it was a way to self-medicate. It was a way to deal with anguish or hurt, or as we'll talk about, right?
Yeah.
But you changed my frame of mind when you said there's a difference between sobriety and recovery. So let's talk about that first, because for me, that was the biggest aha. Because for me, sobriety, and I'd taken friends to AA and different meetings before, and I've seen them get their coins and everything, and they get their year, 5 or 10 years. I never understood that. And then I come to your program, and it's about recovery. And I don't know if you remember this, but we're standing up in that office building in Lehigh, and I'd gotten there earlier than everybody else, and we're looking out the window.
I do.
And I turned to you, because we were about 4 weeks in, and I just said, is this what recovery feels like? And I want you to know, recovery is different than sobriety. I started with that analogy to begin with, that if you fall down during a race, they're not going to pick you up and take you back to the starting line. And that is literally what sobriety would be. Recovery is you don't have relapses. You just have a lapse. You pick yourself up and you keep going. So let's define the difference between sobriety and recovery in your program.
Yeah. Thank you so much.
Why that's the foundation to this.
Yeah, thank you so much for bringing up this topic, because it's so important. And to put a emphasis on how important it is, the National Library of Medicine, they did a survey, and they asked people, how within the last month have you looked at pornography? And the new stats are 91.5% of men have looked at pornography in the last month.
And men's probably defined by somebody 12 or 14 or older, right?
I'm trying to think. I think
Just with the advent of smartphones and everything, it's got to be worse for younger folks.
Oh yeah, for the young folks.
It wasn't available when I was a kid like
completely
it is today.
accessible. Yeah. And for women, it's I believe it was 60.7%, which that is astonishing too. But this is...
Okay, underscore that, because men will be watching this program, but women might also.
Yeah.
90% of men will consume pornography this month.
Yeah.
And so will 60% of women.
Yeah. And the reason that's astonishing is because men's brains are visually stimulated. Women's are not. And that's a generalization, but in general, it's not the case. And for it to be that high shows that we're almost at epidemic levels with this. And I say that not to instill fear or to say, oh no, the world's gonna, explode, whatever, but to say you're not alone. Like,
amen to that part. You are not alone.
It's everyone. And so just understanding that you don't have to bear the weight and shame of thinking, oh, this is just me. I bet everybody else has got it figured out. The truth is no, it's not. And so I want to say thank you to you for having me on to talk about this, because it's such an important topic. And like you said, I love the race analogy. This is one that you came up with during the program. I love this analogy because it is like being right at the end of a race and then be like, nope, you fell. You skinned your knee. You have to go back to the beginning. It makes no sense.
Yeah, we do. Right? That's sobriety.
Exactly. When you say who would do that, well, everybody going through the 12 steps does that. And I brought my stopwatch.
Yeah, unfortunately I don't have one anymore, Curtis.
Don't give away the secret.
Okay, I won't. Okay, if you go through Curtis's program, when you do, you'll get a stopwatch, but you won't have one at the end. We'll just put it out. You won't have it at the end of the first night.
So with the stopwatch, this is the definition of sobriety is, okay, I'm at zero. They call it relapse. We just call it lapses. Had a relapse, and now I'm going to start over. I went from zero. Now I'm at 2 days. Now I'm at 4 days. Now I'm at a week. And you get the coin, and you make it a year. And that's wonderful. But when you fall down, the watch stops.
And you have to hit reset.
And you go back to zero.
Ugh.
And I call this the worth clock. Because with the mindset of sobriety, that's what happens is you say, okay, I had a week or a year of sobriety. I had a week of worth. And now my worth is back to zero. There's an incredible amount of judgment.
And back to what? Zero.
Zero.
I didn't realize that till the way you just said that. You go back to zero.
Yeah.
You literally have no self-worth at that point because it was all based on these days that accumulated. Now you're back to zero.
And that's not how it works, but that's the mindset. And the science shows that it doesn't matter how long you're sober. There's zero correlation with the amount of time that someone abstains from pornography or whatever the addictive behavior is, and the amount of recovery. And I want to dig into this because at first glance, you're like, wait, what does that mean? That means you can go 5 years and you have zero recovery. 5 years of sobriety, zero recovery. You can go 10 years. It doesn't matter the time frame. But when you get into sobriety, it measures how long. Recovery measures how deep.
Oh, see, that's the game changer.
And you can experience a significant amount of recovery in a short amount of time, but you have to go deep. And like going deep means doing the digging. Because the other part about sobriety that is so damaging is sobriety's miserable. Because what sobriety does is, I brought my little demon. We'll call her.
I got my demon too.
We've got this little guy, and sobriety says there's all these little demons in our soul, and I'm going to teach you how to push them down. I'm going to teach you how to suppress them, to squash them. But the trouble is if we're pushing these down in our souls, that means we're carrying them in our souls. That means that they're going to reside with us as long as we're pushing them down. And just like a beach ball that you shove underwater, the farther down it goes, the more pressure there is to pop it back up.
And that's exactly what I experienced. And when you gave that analogy, that rang so true that when I went through my dark nights of the soul in 2009 and I took that beach ball and took it to the depths of the ocean, I thought I had dealt with it, right? Because I had pushed it way down.
Yeah.
Literally, as I learned to scuba dive, I took it deeper and deeper into the ocean.
Yeah.
But then when I went through that experience earlier this year, that beach ball came from the depths of the ocean, surfaced, and as we know, it has to blow up.
It just shot
because
up.
of the pressure,
Yeah.
right? Not just buoyant to the top of the water. It's like a missile.
Yeah.
And it was a missile, and we can put this as an E-rated episode. It kicked my ass. It really did, and it knocked me on my butt. And I realized I had not dealt with certain things. And so that's why recovery is so different. And that's why I want to thank you that this is a recovery program. And can we define then what addiction is? Because one of my favorite definitions of addiction comes from Gabor Mate. He says, any substance that a person uses to relieve pain in the short term, but which leads to negative consequences in the long term. So we're talking in this program about pornography, but this could be overeating. This could be screen time.
Gaming.
Yeah. Social media, whatever your addiction is, whatever your drug of choice is, we're addicted to these things that just take us away from the pain in that moment. We'll talk about dopamine as we get going as well. But without addressing the root cause of the pain, a person may try to stop, but will ultimately crave further relief and be prone to lapse. Again, we call them lapses, not relapses. Mm-hmm. That is just so powerful. And here's what I realized. I was not addicted to pornography. I was not addicted to food. I was not addicted to social media. I was not addicted to all these other things that most people won't admit, right? Because no one's going to say, I'm an addict. And I like how you changed that phrase too. So we'll talk about addiction because I am not an addict. I am not what I was addicted to. I was addicted to shame.
Yeah.
And when I realized I was addicted to shame, and when I was feeling shameful, I used these different addictions to medicate the pain that I was in.
Yeah.
I'm not going to say it evaporated because then the digging began. Then I had to dig where was the shame coming from. But once I could identify that I wasn't addicted to this stuff, that it was just medication, right? Self-medicating, that I was addicted to shame. So I had to dig deep. So let's start with these counterfeit emotions. So let's start with guilt versus shame. Because I think now that we've identified that the foundation is it's recovery, not sobriety, that's where we build that. So let's put the first brick on there of counterfeit versus authentic emotion, guilt versus shame, because I thought they were connected.
Yes.
But then when you realize there's a positive and there's a negative, so let's talk about the positive is guilt, the negative is shame. Let's talk about those two to start with.
Yeah, this one is so important because when we look at guilt and shame, even the researchers, even the scientists, even the psychologists, if you look back 50, 100 years of papers, most of them say the guilt/shame study. And that's why
I had always put them in the same category.
Oh, yeah.
And you separated them, and I was like, oh, I can feel guilty. That's a good thing.
Yes.
But shame's not.
Yeah. And that's why counterfeit emotions are so dangerous, is because they do such a good job of putting on the mask and wearing the clothing of the authentic emotion that we don't even know when we're feeling that. We think we're in the authentic, but we're not. We're in the counterfeit, and shame is one of the best.
So tell us how guilt's positive.
Yeah.
And then let's dig deep into shame.
Yeah. So
That heavy cloak.
that cloak, that's a great word for it, because it is dark and it's this shroud, and it hides the silence, the secrecy, the judgment.
But guilt is good.
Yeah. And guilt actually comes from an Old English word in the 1300s called gilden. And gilden means to repay or make whole. So the feeling of guilt, we think the feeling of guilt is shame because we're so familiar with shame. The feeling of guilt is the feeling of, I did something wrong and now I want to repay. I want to make you whole. That's a beautiful, healthy emotion. And what most people don't realize, the base emotion of guilt is actually empathy, is compassion. Because you're hurting, I know what that hurt feels like. And guess what? I caused that hurt. So guilt says, okay, I need to go to Coz and I need to make amends. I need to repay. I need to make restitution. That's what guilt does. And it's beautiful and it's healthy and it's connecting. That's one of the big things. Every authentic emotion is connecting. Shame. Shame is the lowest frequency emotion we can feel. Shame and apathy are the last two emotions someone will feel.
And on the screen right now, you're seeing the map of consciousness. So you'll see the bottom is shame, and it is the lowest of all the frequencies.
Yeah. And the scale, the emotional frequency scale, they actually did some new studies on the frequency. So they put people in a Faraday cage, which is a cage specifically set up to interrupt or to basically stop any waves, radio waves, any other frequencies from coming in. And then they measured, and this was fascinating. They used to think that at the top of the scale were a couple different emotions. But with this test where they put people in a protected environment in the Faraday cage, they found that there was an emotion they hadn't measured before. And the very highest frequency emotion, this is fascinating, is authenticity.
Right up there past enlightenment then.
Yeah.
Wow.
It is fascinating. And the pyramid or the scale that we typically see with the frequency emotions, they're now rethinking it.
Wow.
Because when people tap into their authenticity, that's when they resonate the highest. And so I know that's a little off topic from guilt and shame, but
we talk a lot about frequency on all the things that I espouse, and that's so important to realize how just draining and negative and low frequency shame is. And I really didn't realize till I started digging in those holes of shame where my shame came from, why it had grown so big. And then when I thought, I just have this shame, and then we went through that shame inventory and disclosure process, and you start, and I wasn't going for some contest, just so you know, I uncovered a lot of triggers. I just didn't share a number, but I went through a lot of triggers, and you talk about how a trigger is just a place to dig. I mean, it's a pin. When something triggers you, that's where you dig.
Yeah.
And so as I dug in all those holes, I realized there was shame from this, and there was shame from this, and there was shame from this, and there was shame from this. And it all kind of just went together in this big pool, this ocean of shame. But as I identified each of those aspects of my life where shame came from, I'm not going to say it evaporated, but I was able to dig there, understand my role in it, and understand, you know what? Maybe I just needed to be guilty here and take responsibility for what I did or didn't do for this. But there was no shame here because I was learning, I was growing. And what was really interesting when we did this as our men's group and everybody else disclosed their shame inventory, I was like, well, I wouldn't feel any shame for what you just said, because that's when I realized it was all subjective. Because as I'm going through my list, was like, well, I'm shamed for this, this, and this. And then as I was reading them, I looked at another one and went, actually, I don't feel any shame for that now. Just by writing it down, thinking through it, I don't have shame for that. That doesn't have any power over me now. And we went through that. But then as the other men shared theirs, I just realized, oh my goodness, look at the power shame has on us.
Oh, yeah.
Now I'm on a mission that we've got to rid ourselves of this shame, because shame holds us back. It literally, if you remember that last week, I was like, I've been given this new Mercedes, this new lease on life. And now I reach down and I release the park brake. Because for the last 50 some odd years of my life, I've been driving around in this beautiful vehicle, so to speak, but I've had the park brake on. And that park brake is shame.
Yeah.
And we've got to help, because everyone I've talked to since then is dealing with some degree of shame in their life.
Yeah. Yeah.
Guilt's good, shame bad.
And here's the beautiful thing. The University of Oslo out of Sweden, as well as Brene Brown, they did 2 independent studies. And what they found when they broke shame and guilt into 2 different categories was that shame had a direct correlation into bullying, suicidal ideation, addictive behavior, drug abuse, sexual promiscuity, like direct line in. But then they flipped it. And this is where it became beautiful. They said, well, what about guilt? Shame says, here's the path in. They found that guilt was a direct path out. That if you want to get out of addiction, get into guilt. You want to get out of bullying or any other behavior that you're not enjoying, get into guilt. And just like you said, guilt says, I'm going to take 100% responsibility for my actions. And then I'm going to let guilt do its job. And that means I'm going to let it flow through me, move me to action. And then it flows past, leaving a little reminder that there's pain when we do harmful behaviors.
But that's the difference. Guilt says, I did something wrong, or I did something bad. Shame says, I'm bad.
Yes.
And then that changes the whole self-talk. That changes our self-image, our self-concept. So there's a difference between separating the performance from the performer. Guilt says, yeah, I did something wrong or bad. Mm-hmm. Shame says, I am bad. And then if that's your belief system, this is where I'm going to take this a little bit further. It's not just an emotion, because then shame becomes a belief system and therefore governs every thought and action, because I'm bad. Therefore, I'm not enough. That's where shame says I'm not enough. Do you know, Curtis, in all of my coaching conversations with people at the highest level of some of the largest organizations in the world, and I've shared dinners or coaching conversations, and I've just said that you're enough. I don't care at whatever level those people actually shed a tear, because every person, whether a corporation, a religious leader, whatever, has said to me, they don't think they're enough.
Yeah.
And I think that's the greatest lie being told to us as human beings is, you're not enough. And where does you're not enough come from? Shame.
Yeah.
So we've got to combat this shame.
Yeah. And what you talked about earlier is that we've got these pieces of our soul that we're going to call them demons for this conversation. And as we're pushing them down, that's what shame says to do. Shame says suppress them, hide them in the corners of your soul where no one will ever find them. And as long as we do that, we carry the demons with us. Recovery says, no, shame, I'm not going to believe you. Instead, I'm going to take this guy out of my soul. I'm going to look at him face to face, and I'm going to say, I want to understand you. And no longer carry that in my soul, but pull the demon out. Take our demons to lunch is what I call it.
Yes,
let's take our
absolutely.
demons
Celebrate
to lunch.
them. Let the monsters out. Let's have a little party for them.
And start to see them. And when we do, we realize, oh, wait a minute. This isn't a demon after all. This is an important part of me that was hurt, that's trying to protect me, but doesn't know how. And when we can embrace that and bring it back into our souls in a very different way that we're not afraid of, that we're not ashamed of, and say, you know what? I love you, and I'm going to take it from here.
And I'm going to take care of you.
Yes, take care of that.
We don't want to hurt this person anymore.
Yeah, we're going to take care of that child that was 10 years old and
Or whenever it happened.
found the calendar. You know, that child, my favorite definition of trauma, I think the most effective definition of trauma is so simple. It's very, very clearly that trauma is an experience that my brain couldn't process. That's it. And we think of trauma as this great big monster. Oh, I've got trauma. You know what? All it is that you couldn't understand. You didn't understand what experience happened to you at that particular time.
Because two different people could go through a traumatizing event, but they deal with the trauma of it differently, right?
Oh, completely.
So there's a traumatic event,
Yeah.
but then trauma is what we do in our head in the movies we make for the next 50 years.
Yeah, it's the demons that we carry. That's it. And once we can make sense of it, once we can bring sense to that, there's no more trauma. It's that simple. And I know that just sounds almost pedantic of how simple it is.
Not easy, but simple.
Yeah.
And you put it in those three things. So the three things for, let's see how well I did. So the three things for shame to exist are silence, secrets, and
Judgment.
Yeah. Oh, I've had to learn those three. Especially the judgment part, right? Because we put so much judgment to it. But silence, secrets, and judgment. Think about that for a second. So whatever your shame that you're going through, you've been doing it in silence. You've kept it secret. And think about it. They tell us we're as sick as our secrets. So no more secrets. If you really want to be liberated, no more secrets, right? These guys get to come out.
Yeah.
And I love how you say it in your program, you're unblackmailable.
Yeah.
Whoa. Right? Because if all of your demons are out, nobody can blackmail you.
Yeah. If you're hiding nothing, then what are they going to say?
How liberating is that?
Exactly.
Somebody can't say, well, I've got dirt on you. Okay.
I've already told everybody.
Great.
We're good.
There's no dirt. You can't blackmail me. That's powerful.
Yeah.
Anything else you want to say about this shame and personal blame game with shame?
The one thing that really identifies, like when I know someone is really stepping into full recovery, is when they have a lapse. Instead of saying, I'm a horrible person, I've done this horrible thing, they get on their knees and they're actually grateful for the lapse because they've understood it in the mindset of recovery rather than sobriety. Sobriety, by definition, is the time sobriety is the time between relapses, right? That means there's a lapse here, there's a lapse here. Recovery, it changes the game.
Keep score.
Yeah, it doesn't base my worth off of time. It says, I now have a message that this is the exact GPS location in my soul, in the map of my soul. This is the coordinates where I get to dig to find this little guy that's been hiding in my soul this whole time. And I get to bring him out and I get to embrace him and I get to say, thank you so much, but I've got it from here.
Yeah, and the thing I love about recovery is it's not that you never have a lapse. And I just didn't feel the pressure, if I can be candid, that when I knew I was in recovery, the idea that in some dark crevice of my soul, it's going to sneak up on me some night, it didn't happen.
Isn't that amazing?
It was crazy. And then I told you, I even said to you, even the words didn't have power anymore, right? Sometimes I would just hear or see the word pornography and I would cringe.
Yeah.
And you would just feel dirty and nasty and every other negative emotion that would come with it. And now it has no power because that's not even a consideration. And what I also found is I was able to release myself from shame. You know, my physical ailments have totally shifted, right? My fatigue, all my internal issues. I mean, I've been able now, and I shared with you my weight story throughout my life, and that was always based on shame. And it always manifested itself through weight. I feel 30 years younger. I really do. Cognitively, physically, everything has changed. And if somebody says, well, Coz, have you lost a little weight? Yeah, I've lost 214 pounds of shame.
I love that.
And that's crazy.
I love
and I
that.
just want everyone to feel that. It's just transforming. So anything else with shame? I mean, we could just stop there.
A whole nother episode.
Right. But hopefully we've triggered something in everybody to realize they have shame and there's some places to dig in their soul. But let's highlight a couple of these others because I think they go together. So let's talk about pain versus misery. Just give it the attention because I think you teed it up with that. You were feeling pain when you were going through your divorce. We've said pain is inevitable, but misery is a choice. Mm-hmm. Let's just add a little layer to that a little bit more, and then we'll move on to love versus lust.
Yeah. Both of these first two, pain and misery, guilt and shame, they're two of the only authentic emotions that are not meant to be held. They're meant to be felt. And what I mean by that is that the purpose of pain, the purpose of guilt, is to come in, enter our bodies, and then move us to action.
Move us forward.
Move us forward, upward, and bring us together.
So you're saying shame and misery don't move us forward.
Oh, no.
We stay stuck.
No, the direction of counterfeit emotions, there's like authentic emotions, they move us in three directions: forward, upward, or they bring us together. Counterfeit emotions only have one direction, and that's in a circle.
The spiral.
The spiral.
Oh, the dreaded spiral.
They come back to themselves. Anxiety breeds anxiety. Fear fuels fear. Misery, I mean, there's a saying, misery loves company, because misery can't survive unless it has more misery. It just keeps coming back to itself over and over and over again. And what these counterfeits do. But pain and guilt, they're beautiful and they're healthy and they hurt. That's a really important distinction. They do hurt, but they come into us with these hurts. They move us to action, but then the key is they move through us. They're not meant to be held. They're meant to be felt. And when they do their job, they're done and they leave. And we don't have that anymore. Shame sticks around. Misery is like a tar that just attaches to our body.
Hence, stuck.
Stuck.
That's how we get stuck.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
That's the difference between a rut and a grave is if we're stuck in a rut, it has a way out, which is forward like you're talking about, right? Sometimes we get in a little bit of a rut.
Sure.
But we don't need to be stuck in a grave if there's a way out. And you're saying the way out is through this authentic emotion.
Yes.
Forward.
Yeah. And pain comes in. And if we let it do its job and we let the pain drip out our eyes and we hear the pain in our sobs and our cries, then it's allowed to move through us. Misery, what it does is as the pain comes in, misery engulfs it and it traps the pain inside. That's that part of trauma that hurts so bad, is that pain just sits there spinning in your soul because it's trapped in misery. But if we strip away the misery, we strip away the blame and the shame, and we let it hurt, and we let it move us to action, then it's free to pass through. Then it's free that it doesn't have to stay in our soul anymore. Misery wants to trap it there. Misery wants to keep it there. But
And you're right. I mean, that's just being miserable.
Yeah.
Right? Your ability to embrace misery.
Yeah.
Right? And then that ability to hold on to the misery only increases. And then it just weighs us down. But there's a way out of misery.
There is. And that's one thing that's beautiful about every counterfeit emotion is that even though they're destructive, they all bring a message. And that message is to take a right turn and go to the authentic. Don't stay at the counterfeit. The counterfeit is giving you a message. The trouble is when we let the messenger become a dictator. And so I want to make sure that people understand there isn't such a thing as a bad emotion. Every emotion brings a message, but there are emotions that serve us and don't serve us. And those are the authentic and the counterfeit.
Let's approach a very pedestrian subject in today's world, right? Because I believe we basically have one mission in life. It has two sides to the coin.
Okay.
That is to learn how to love, right? Because love is the answer. But the other side of that coin is also then we have to learn to be lovable. If we expect someone to love us, then I need to take responsibility to be a lovable person, right? I have that. We've met a lot of jerks in the world, and they're not lovable.
And sometimes the jerks are us.
Right? Because we have our jerk moments.
Yeah.
So that's the natural man, right? Is because we have to learn to be lovable, but really to love. But there's so many counterfeits in the world today, especially young boys and men. They confuse love with so many other things. And it's taken a lifetime to really understand that love is the answer and what love can do.
Yeah.
But it's counterfeited in today's media world. I spent 35 years of my life in media, so I know the power of media. But the media preaches and profits from lust.
Oh, yeah.
Separate the two for me.
Yeah. This one is so powerful. This is week 4 in the program, and it is so powerful because love, when we grow up, we're taught opposite emotions, right? We're taught love, don't hate. Love says hug, hate says hit. It's so far on the end of the spectrum. It's just easy. It's like, yeah, I get it. I see it. It's way over there, different completely. But then there's the emotion that slides right up next to love, and that's lust. And love says kiss, and lust says kiss. It does such a good job of pretending or masquerading as that emotion that we don't even know. We think we're in love, but we're actually in lust. And lust is so damaging. This dyad actually took me 2 years of research to figure out the one difference between love and lust. And that difference is whether or not I take.
This is so powerful.
It is, and it changes marriage. If I'm ever taking, like we talked about the open hand. We talked about the idea of the open hand, that this is my favorite symbol of love, is the open hand gives, but the open hand also receives. It's not a closed hand with conditions. It's none of that, but the lustful hand takes. The lustful hand grabs. The lustful hand says, I don't care whether you're giving it to me or not. I'm going to take this for my personal satisfaction and gratification. And you can do the exact same action. You can kiss someone's lips in love, meaning giving and receiving with that open, surrendered hand. Or you can do it in lust. Exact same action. But the one dehumanizes, the one objectifies, the one is a means for gratification. The other is all about connection. It's all about saying, I see you. I want to be with you. I want you to be with me. And when you're ready to give, I'm ready to receive. And when you're ready to receive, I'm going to give. And that open hand goes both ways. But that grabbing hand, that's the symbol of lust. And it's amazing because we think that, when I get married, then I deserve to be, to be with my wife or whatever it is. And that's so not true. It's intimacy doesn't just mean sexual intimacy.
And you talk about the pillars of intimacy in your program, which I think is beautiful.
Yeah.
So we won't go into that today, but sexual intimacy is just one of the aspects of intimacy that I hope whoever's watching or listening to this will really explore that.
Yeah.
That it doesn't have to be based on just the physical intimacy.
No,
because I appreciate being intimate with someone intellectually.
Yes, emotionally.
And
yes.
Wow, when you connect at that level and actually see someone through divine eyes, that changes everything.
Yeah, it really
Instead
does.
of through lustful eyes.
Yeah. And intimacy can be broken down to into me, see. Into me, see. How beautiful is that? Is I want to see you. I want to see all of you, every part of you, even the vulnerable parts, even the parts that may be scary for you. I want to see that. And when you connect with someone on that level of intimacy, there's such a bond.
It's divine.
It is. It's divine. That's
But
the
you got to get
perfect
that
way.
counterfeit out of the way.
Yeah. Yeah. So true.
Let's take just a few minutes here and have you explain why in your program you actually do the inventory and disclosure the way you do.
Yeah.
Because I think the whole journaling and writing down your triggers and then going through the whole model and all the different protocols that you have is so powerful. But how is that so impactful in your program to actually take the inventory and then share it with others?
Yeah. So
Appropriate audience.
right. Right.
Right? That's your social intelligence to know who you share things with.
Yeah. So in the program, we do something very different than other programs. Other programs do an inventory, but they just do a sexual inventory. Like, what did you do when you looked at pornography, et cetera, et cetera. What we do is we do a shame inventory.
So much different.
Yeah. Because if you look at the problem, that much of the problem is pornography. That much of the problem is shame.
Yes.
And
that was
so-
just a mask to it. That was just one of the pills you took, so to speak, to numb the pain.
Exactly.
Right?
Yeah.
So you can't just deal with that. You need to deal with what beach ball is in the depths of the ocean that's
What's
causing
under?
this.
Yeah.
Yes.
What's underneath?
Those guys.
These little guys. And so shame needs three things to live, just like you said. It needs secrecy, it needs silence, and it needs judgment. And all of those things can be addressed in doing a shame inventory of saying, I'm going to bring this to the light. And we know light disinfects. We know light cleanses, it cleans. And so doing a shame inventory is saying, I feel embarrassed by this. I feel ashamed about this. And when we bring it out, just like you said, all of a sudden those ferocious lions and tigers that were living in our souls, we're like, oh, wait, that's a kitty cat. Actually, that's a little baby kitty cat.
I don't even need to think about that one ever again.
Yeah.
Once we bring it to the light.
And that's the amazing thing is shame cannot exist in light. It can't. And so when we eliminate the silence, meaning we don't talk about it, we eliminate the secrecy of hiding it in our soul.
But that's our problem right now.
That's
why this is a big step forward, right? Is you're sharing your story, I'm sharing my story, we're disinfecting it with the light. I'm going to suggest whether it's anything to do with anybody's shame or suicidal ideations or addictions or anything, we've got to talk about these things. Keeping them silent and secret is not the answer for them to go away.
No.
The cultures that do that only have more problems. It's when we disinfect with light that it can evaporate.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's what happens is it does. It evaporates. And sometimes when we go through that, we realize I have shame because I never resolved the guilt, that I actually did something that needs to be resolved. Okay, well, great. Then let's resolve it. Let's go to that step. But if it's just nothing more than shame, when it enters the light,
it blew me away to actually look at a list, and I went to say certain things out loud, and I looked at it and went, okay, that's silly. That has no power anymore. Just writing it down, bringing it into the light, it evaporated. Now, there were some bigger ones that I had to deal with, but then expressing them and talking through them, so powerful.
Yeah.
But denial and keeping it a secret does not serve anyone.
Yeah. Yeah. That just fuels the shame. That just feeds it and it gets deeper and deeper. And so we have to do that digging to pull it out, bring it to the light.
And be willing to take responsibility for the consequences of sharing that too.
Exactly.
Because there might be some things in your past that you're going to have to make restitution for or may offend someone, or not everybody's going to forgive you. They didn't go through the same process you did, but you've got to do that for yourself to have that personal inventory.
Yeah.
Regardless of how somebody else might receive it. And you even talked about this. That doesn't mean you share it with certain people because maybe they're not in a place to actually receive it.
Yeah. And that's okay.
And that's okay.
That's okay.
Because that's personal to them too.
Yeah. Yeah. And so understanding that not everybody is there, that's all right. But those that are, then yeah, share and make that a part of getting rid of every cobweb in every corner of your soul.
I loved how you said that. Just sweeping out every corner of your soul with every cobweb gone.
Yeah.
That's just a metaphor that's so powerful.
It's amazing.
It's life-changing. Let's move on to a couple of others. We talked about kind versus nice a little bit in the introduction so that we have time to get to these last couple. Excellence versus perfectionism.
Yes.
Yeah. Some people may have grown up in an ideology or a theology of be therefore perfect, right? So we're here to learn how to be perfect. Well, that's bullcrap. You're not going to be perfect. So flip that on its ass and go for excellence. How is that different then?
Yeah. Every single one of us on earth has a desire for excellence. It's part of us. It's in us. But when we turn that to perfectionism, it is so damaging. And perfectionism and pornography viewing or other addictive behaviors, they have a direct correlation. There's a direct correlation.
How so?
Because the idea that I have to be perfect, it's the stopwatch. It's the sobriety. I have to be perfect. I can't make
fake.
any mistakes. I have to be infallible is so damaging because we're not. Plain and simple, we're not. And if you look, I love that you brought up that scripture, Matthew 5:48. It says, be ye therefore perfect, even as the Father which art in heaven is perfect. The trouble with that is that you have to go back to the Greek and the Hebrew translation. And both of those don't mean infallible, don't mean you're never going to make a mistake. That's not the purpose of this life. It means whole or complete. Be therefore whole. And that's part of the reason why the program has the whole model, is because whole says, okay, there's all these little guys in my soul. I'm going to exile them. I'm going to fracture my soul. So now there's all these pieces of me that I don't accept inside. Well, that's not whole. You can't be whole if you're exiling parts of yourself, exiling parts of your soul. It's not until you bring them back, embrace them, see them for what they really are.
Because they were lessons.
Yeah. And then pull them back inside and say, okay, you are a part of me. And that's all right. That's when we get to be whole. It doesn't mean infallible. It's actually the opposite. We're supposed to be fallible. We're supposed to make mistakes. That's part of this whole experience of learning and growing and becoming, is that we get to make mistakes over and over again. And that's beautiful because then we get a chance to learn each time. And so getting rid of that idea of perfectionism, because perfectionism, it actually doesn't demand perfection. It only demands the perception of perfection.
That's wild. Because we know people who act perfect.
Yeah.
And that's the biggest mask of all.
Oh, that was me. That was completely me. Is I had this idea that I had to look perfect in front of so many people. And I look back and I have a lot of compassion for that Curtis, the Curtis of yesterday.
So I like something else that I'd heard before, but you put it in your program as well. Because if you're not perfect, that means you sin. And sin simply comes from the word which just means to miss the mark.
Yes.
Right? So if I'm shooting at a target and I miss, that's actually what sin was, meant to miss the mark.
Yeah.
Well, that's what we do every day. We miss the mark.
Every day.
So with perfectionism, the other side of that, so to me, excellence also has a lot of grace in it.
Yeah.
Because I'm not perfect, therefore I have grace for myself, but I can pick myself up and excel and do better today than I did yesterday and do better tomorrow than I did today. That's excelling. That's excellence.
Yes. And it's all about...
And we're built that way. We want to be excellent.
Yeah, inherently. We know that we have amazing potential inside of us. We know that. And every person on the planet has that. And to be able to tap into that, and it's really about striving. Excellence is about striving. It's saying, you know what? There's a potential in me that I can see. I don't even need others to see. I can see that, and I'm going to strive for that. And that's where I'm going to leave it. And you know what? I'm going to stumble, and I'm going to fall as I keep striving, as I keep pushing up the mountain. I'm going to trip.
But I'm going to get up and I'm going to finish this thing.
I'm finishing the race.
It never ends, though. Right?
Yeah.
Till that day we're called home, we're going to keep running the race.
Exactly.
And it is a marathon, not a sprint.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. It's such a marathon.
It is a marathon. So get your form down, do it right, hold the potato chips, all those things. They don't need to understand what we're talking about right now. They'll come take
the running form.
That's right. Absolutely. All right, let's go to the last one and start to head towards the finish line of our discussion today. And that is joy versus pleasure. And to me, that also connects back to the love versus lust. There's pleasure, right? Because we're a pleasure-seeking mechanism. But there's the joy that's long-lasting that just fills our soul. So how is pleasure and joy counterfeit to each other?
Yeah. So,
or which one's authentic, which one's counterfeit, and why?
Joy, we talked about those emotions that are not meant to be held. Joy is meant to be held. And it's fascinating because most of us think, well, life is hard, so therefore I can't have joy. That wall that we talked about, the hard or the pain versus the joy and the love. And it's not true. Joy and pain can exist together, and we can't do it with pleasure. And here's one of the key distinctions is pleasure is all about consumption. If you look at pleasure, it's that amazing bowl of Ben & Jerry's ice cream. Like, I'm going to consume. It's
not
the
a bowl, Curtis. It's a pint. It's a quart. I wish they came in half gallons. I don't do that anymore. The old me would have done
it's
that.
The half gallon of Ben & Jerry's. But it's all about consuming. It's all about taking in.
And that's our society. That's what the media teaches.
The doom scrolling,
right?
Yeah, the ice cream, the doom scrolling, the pornography, the whatever it is. It's all about consumption. That's pleasure. Joy is actually very different. Joy builds up. Joy is about productivity. It's about creation rather than consumption. And
beautiful.
And joy is meant to live with us. It's meant to be stored inside. Joy is meant to be held because we can have it. We can have joy every day, even in the pain. And I want to make that really clear. We can have joy in the pain, not after, not, as a lesson later on in life, but during, together with, combined with. And when we realize that one fact, when we can have joy even in the pain, then our pain becomes a sacred sorrow, and our joy becomes what we see in life everywhere.
We had a powerful experience one night in the program, and all of us, half of us were live in Lehigh, and the other half were virtual. And you took us through this exercise, and I was actually blown away by how many of the men in the group had to go back years to find a moment of joy in their life. And then I had subsequent conversations with some of them on our peer calls where they were like, I now have joy every day because I know the ingredients of joy, and they don't have to be hit and miss. We can have joy every day.
We can.
And that's why we're here. Men they might have joy. Oh my gosh, it's possible.
It is. And it's beautiful. And that's what we're meant to do. That's one of the main purposes.
It's not consuming.
It's not.
And unfortunately, I made my livelihood from television, which teaches through advertising, you need this, and you need to buy this, and you need this to feel better about yourself. And consume.
Yeah.
And we've become more consuming than ever before.
Yeah.
And we consume, and that's not joy.
That's not joy.
And when you understand the difference and that you can have joy every day, but it's an inside job, what a powerful, powerful way to live.
Joy is having a conversation with my friend Coz. Joy,
Likewise, brother.
joy is realizing that the pain that we experience in life is a gift. And it hurts. Don't get me wrong, it hurts. But seeing that gift that is meant to help us grow and become more like God, that's joy. Joy is holding the hand of my Patty. Joy is waking up, realizing I get another chance to breathe. We can find joy in any moment, even the hard ones. And understanding that one principle, that life is not built against us. Life is built for us. That brings so much hope. That brings so much joy.
Let me wrap up today by making a challenge to everyone watching or listening today. If you find that you are stuck and you're a victim, that there is a higher law, and that is being a victor. But I also believe in something you teach, and I've taught it just differently, but that we can go from victim to victor to vessel. And that's why I wanted to have this discussion to share with everybody today, is no more victim. We can be the victor, but once you become the victor, the God will give you so much more if you embrace that and become a vessel. Let's conclude with that today. What does that mean to you to be a vessel? Because you're being a vessel with Counterfeit Emotions. You've challenged me to be a vessel. And I think you saw a different person than 2.5 months ago when we had a discussion when I was sitting in my car with you on the cell phone, versus last Saturday night when I was on stage at that gala.
Completely different person.
Because one was a victim, one's a vessel. What's the difference and how do we get there?
This is, of everything we've talked about, I think this is one of the most important things, is victims ask the question, why is this happening to me? And when I was going through my divorce, I was asking the same question. Divorce naturally has pain. It does. It's part of divorce. But I was heaping that bucket of misery on my head, and I was asking the question, why is this happening to me? This isn't fair. The battle cry of the victim. This isn't fair. And I went to lunch with my dear friend Jesse. And he said, as I was naming the litany of things that were wrong in my life, and
you were taking inventory.
Oh, I was. It was just like one after another. And he goes, time out. He goes, Curtis, life doesn't happen to you. It happens for you. And I was certain he hadn't heard me, because I was like, okay, we got to try this one more time. And I was like, no, Jesse, all these bad things. He goes, stop, Curtis, stop. Life doesn't happen to you. All these things are for your good. All of them. Not one or two or the things you like. All of them are for your good. And it hit me so powerfully. It hit me so hard. I'm like, wait, but I want to be a victim. Can I please be a victim? And I was like, no, he's right. But what you were talking about is there's a third level in the transcendence ladder. And that third level is asking a different question still. That question is, how can this happen through me? So why is this happening to me? That's victim. How is this happening for me? That's victor. How can this happen through me? That's vessel.
I challenge all of us to dig deep and figure out how you can be a vessel. We said this for years on this program, and I mean it sincerely, that who you are is a light. And you are a unique, special light. And there is someone wandering aimlessly through the dark who needs to be guided by your light, your light. And if your light is being squelched because of shame and you're a victim, you're not being all that you could be. And you're not finding the real joy that could be yours. And I just want you to know that there is another life on the other side of recovery. And so, like we said when we started, whatever that recovery is, addictions are just masks. They're just medications to numb the blame. So we're not addicted to those substances or those things. We're addicted to the shame. Once you rid yourself from all of these guys, these little shame demons, there is so much hope and light on the other side of that. It's hard to just put it into words, Curtis, and you just want to take this download and plug it into somebody else, but they have to experience it for themselves.
Yeah.
So just tell us a little bit more about how others can become involved in Counterfeit Emotions virtually or live here in Utah.
Yeah. So our next cohort with the pornography recovery program is going to start June 25th. And you can join in person, which I highly suggest, especially if you're in Utah, or you can join virtually online. And we go through the 8 weeks like we talked about, and we find recovery. We find true recovery. We find hope, because, gosh, there's so much hope. And we help people live in authenticity, the highest frequency emotion, help them understand who they truly are and how much they're worth. And so, yeah, you can go to counterfeitemotions.com/recovery and learn more about the program, have a call with me, and join us for an experience that is like none other.
It is like none other. And what makes it so powerful, it's not just weekly meetings, but I'll tell you, the daily accountability through the app and all those exercises and the videos and your peer calls and your PEMS calls and all the things you do, because you said it in that first week, this is going to be work. And if you can't commit to do the work, then Zach's probably going to call you and let you know that you're not keeping up with the program and maybe this isn't for you. And there was one day I didn't keep tabs on my app, and I got that call the next day from Zach saying, there were some things you didn't do yesterday. I'm grateful for that accountability. And the other men that were in the group, I now have lifelong relationships with, and that's priceless.
It is. So beautiful.
So, Curtis, thank you again so much for just what you've done for my soul, helping me release the brakes, helping my light shine again, so that I can be the vessel that God created me to become. Because shame teaches us, hide. No more shame. Don't hide. Come out into the light and be the best version of you. And God bless you for what you're doing. God bless you for how you're helping people, and onward and upward.
I love you, Coz.
I love you too.
Thank you so much.
And keep smiling. Keep shining brightly, because I know there is someone out there who's wandering aimlessly through the dark, who needs to be guided by your light, your special, unique light.